Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Index at Office Hours. Today is the 7th of February and this is IOH 93. If anyone is new to Index at Office Hours, this is the town square for graph ecosystem participants to come together and discuss the most important and relevant topics for indexes. This is a conversation, and by that token, we love participation. So at certain parts of today's conversation, we'll open it up to many of you in the audience to share your opinion via voice or text. Today is a particularly light agenda, so we'd love to hear a lot of discussion. As a reminder, this is recorded and will be uploaded onto public channels like YouTube. So if you're concerned about privacy, please bear that in mind. And with that, let's get into today's exciting agenda. As always, I start off with opening remarks, so today will be no different. I want to give a shout out to 𝗨𝗂𝗧𝗧𝗂𝗧 podcast 102 with Alejandro. Alejandro is the co-founder of 𝗨𝗂𝗧𝗧𝗂𝗧, and 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗧𝗂𝗧 is focusing on providing trustworthy, meritocratic, privacy-preserving Web3 identity solutions. And in this conversation, Alejandro spoke about his background, and the crypto scene in Colombia, where he's from, how he came into Web3, spoke a bit about his opinions on the graph and the future of Web3. So if you're interested in identity and want to learn a little bit about what he's doing at 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗧𝗂𝗧, then I would highly recommend checking out that episode. Nick, if you're in the chat, please do post that link to 𝗨𝗂𝗧𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗂𝗧 episode so people can check it out. And with that, I will hand us over to Anna, who's going to take us into our regularly scheduled Repo Watch section.
Thank you, Abel. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our regular Repo Watch section. So we've had a few new releases for some of our execution layer clients. And with that, looking at 𝗨𝗀𝗃𝗀, we've had two new releases. So version 2.38, which contains some Gnosis chain fixes for the trace method, some improved handling for fork choice updated, some like Bohr updated consensus engine code, and fixing panic in transaction pool. Then we've also had another release for 𝗨𝗃𝗀 that is version 2.38.1. This is just the bug fix for the panic of sending to closed channels. So if you haven't had a chance to look into 2.38, I would suggest that you go straight into 2.38.1 to include that bug fix as well. We have also had a new release on Firehose Ethereum, release number 1.3.3, and this includes removing the command fireEth init, which was left over from another time, adding a new flag for common AutoMax procs to optimize Go thread management, and another flag to specify Go memory limits based on a percentage of available memory. We have also had from Streaming Fast team, so Streaming Fast Near, a new release. For this we haven't had releases in a very long time. So here we have had version 1.0.0, and that's just adding support for requester pays buckets on Google Storage bucket, and adding support for Substream version 0.2. On Streaming Fast Near, we've also had another release, so 1.0.1. This here they have renamed some flags. So breaking flag, receipt index builder, lookup index sizes, and a few other similar ones have been replaced by common block indexer sizes, common indexer store URL, and an additional flag. So you can see all of this in the agenda. If you are updating to this version, make sure to check your configuration because these new flags are likely to break your code. this is all we have for execution layer clients. So before moving on to our consensus layer clients, please let me know if anyone has tried any of the versions I've mentioned in the chat. On the consensus layer clients, we haven't had any new releases from any of our CLs. And on the graph stack, we have had a new release for indexer, service, and agent. So this is release 0.20.11. This release is courtesy of 𝗨𝗀𝗂 and Ford. So thank you for your inputs. And some changes here. So indexer common has implemented stake feasibility check. On GitHub Actions, they have added Node version 17 and version 18 support and have removed Node version 13. On indexer service, an additional YAML dependency has been added, and there have been additional, basically this is mostly a cleanup release with some validations and updating some versions. And I can see that Big Jim is asking, is version 0.20.11 recommended for mainnet? And it is marked as a pre-release. I will call on Ford or 𝗨𝗀𝗂. They are not here. It's marked as a pre-release, so I'm not sure. Some people say, okay. And Matthew is saying that he's been playing around with the new Aragon and Polygon, but he still gets stuck, so nothing new. That's all I have on Repo Watch today. Over to you, Juan.
Oops, I was on push to talk. Cool, thanks, Anna. Getting into Protocol Watch, we have a few things to cover. First of all, forum governance, as always. We have two new GIPs, GIP 44 and 43. GIP 44 is to enforce the minimum indexer stake across all indexer actions. This is because some actions like slashing can potentially throw an indexer under the minimum threshold, which is 100k GRT, while still allowing them to keep using the stake for regular actions. So basically this GIP kind of like tries to fix that. Next up we have GIP 43, which is activate indexing rewards in the graph network on Arbitrum 1. This is, as some of you might know, L2 has already been released, but there's no indexing rewards on Arbitrum yet. As well as some other support, like for example the UI, I think it's not released yet. But aside from that, this GIP is kind of like the initial step to start activating indexing rewards in Arbitrum 1. It tells that it's not gonna be like a switch. It's not gonna be like 0% to 100% like in just one update. It's gonna be slowly going up and making sure that everything's still working while we add some indexing rewards to Arbitrum 1. Then there was an update to the thread regarding updating some protocol parameters due to post-merge reduced block times. This is, as some of you might know, like some of the parameters were taken into consideration, like block times from proof of work era. And this basically makes sure that the new block times are taken into account for the different parameters that we're using block numbers as a sort of like time invariant. Next up into forum research, we have all of the core dev updates for January, February. This includes the node, semiotic, the guild, streaming fast, also an answer to one of the questions on the previous update for streaming fast, GraphOps and Messari. We also have a thread regarding indexer POI discrepancy. This, I think the one that the OP is here, maybe he wants to talk a little bit about this, but basically the idea is that there has been a few POI discrepancies in the network ever since launch, and with the POIfier tool, it's possible to kind of like know about those yeah, also GraphCast POI radio will also help with this. But yeah, it's a good thing that we're still keeping in track that there are some POI discrepancies, and it's usually due to issues in one or the other indexer, and it's usually quite difficult to understand who's right and who's wrong without these kind of tools. Then we have the small clarification to the query fee rebate claiming behavior. Basically, Chris wanted to clarify on the same post that vouchers do expire. So if you don't collect your query fees, those will expire. But after you collect them, claiming is always available as long as you collected the voucher before it expired. Next up, we have the contracts repository. There's a bunch of L2 related things, PRs that have been merged from the previous audit. And there are a few L2 related PRs that are still open, but had some updates. I'm not going to go into detail because there's a bunch of them, but you can see the full list in the agenda. Network subgraphs, there have been no new releases since last IOH, and that should be all for Protocol Watch. So I'm going to hand it over to Abel again.
Thank you, Juan, for sharing updates on Protocol Watch. Cool. Well, I'm going to now hand it to Pedro, who's going to give us some updates on the MIPS program. So Pedro, if you're here, please unmute your mic and feel free to share some updates.
And you guys hear me?
Yes, we can indeed.
Cool. Thank you. Yes, so quick updates. So Polygon, you know already, was still halted. There's no way to move past it. So we were still monitoring everything, but there's not really much we can do there at the moment. So we'll be sharing more updates as we go. The 𝗨𝘀𝗪𝗀𝗪𝗀, I still don't know how to pronounce this name, I'm sorry. The phase 1 mission 2 is ending tomorrow at 5 p.m. UTC, as you know. Then we'll have the leaderboard updated, and we're hoping to share all of the data with you, the monitored data. Yeah, I'm actually going to talk about the subgraphs we've been using to get this data from. I have an update, but I'll mention it in a little bit. So Celo is ending tomorrow. Arbitrum is coming Friday, 5 p.m. UTC as well. And then there's some updates here that I'm highlighting now on an email thread that we'll be sending in a few hours too. If you've synced the Nitro database from a specific tar that 𝗨𝘀𝗀𝗳𝗂𝗧 has shared in our Notion page a couple of days ago, you might have to resync again. And I'm specifically referring to the Nitro slash nitro-recent.tar instead of nitro.tar. You might want to double check that because that archive is not working properly for our use case, at least. And so there's a new snapshot that's being shared by other MIPS participants by BitTorrent. I'm actually also seeding it, trying to help out. So all of these torrents can be found in the Notion page now, in the respective Notion pages. And that applies to Arbitrum, but also Avalanche. So if you've tried syncing in the past, Arbitrum, yeah, just double check that your archive node is working fine and head over to our Discord channel. There's an Arbitrum channel there. You can test things out with our, you can ask other MIPS participants and Payne from 𝗨𝘀𝗀𝗪𝗀 if your data is okay. And if it's not, yeah, just get this torrent and resync it again using this new snapshot. For Avalanche, this mission is starting this Friday. So also at 5 p.m. UTC, the 17th February. The snapshots are available. There's also a torrent now, as mentioned, if you wanna use it. We haven't had any snapshot before, so if you haven't synced yet, it's a good time to download this through BitTorrent and just sync your node from this archive, from this archive snapshot. And just a small warning here as well. If you've used 𝗨𝘀𝗀𝗪𝗀's bare metal guide, there was also an issue with the config file where the the JSON property was set as the what was it? I believe it was the pruning enabled JSON property. That value was assigned as a string and not a boolean, and so effectively the node assumed that the pruning was set to true instead of false. So double check that too. You can ask, if you don't know how, just go on to our NIPS testnet or the Avalanche channel and ask for instructions. But yeah, just double check that you got that option set correctly. Otherwise, you might have to sync the archive node from scratch again. And again, we do have snapshots now, so that will also be faster. What else? The L2 mission are still active and you can still join. So yeah, if you haven't yet, you can still do it. We also have, the Firehose workshops. We've had one last week. If you haven't seen it yet, it's been uploaded to Index.Office Hours YouTube channel, and it's a good one from Pinax. More will be coming. We're working on those. And lastly, the gateway-derived metrics for the QoS, for the indexer's quality of service. So you know that we've shared this subgraph before, and an accompanying dashboard as well. The issue was that the subgraph we built before was it did not distinguish deployment IDs. Like, it did not distinguish mainnet deployment IDs from testnet deployment IDs. So what ended up happening was that we were aggregating metrics at the deployment level, regardless of the environment those subgraphs were published to. And that all obviously had some issues. And so we've been working on this new version and updating the way, or just changing the way we push that gateway-derived metrics onto noses, and then so that we can then build the proper subgraphs for it. And this will be coming early next week, so that you can, moving forward for all missions, just use these subgraphs and dashboards to keep track of all of your QoS-related metrics. And in the meantime, I'm hoping we can extract the data directly from our logs, let's say, so that you can, and share it with you, so that you can check the data yourself, because these subgraphs were not really working for testnet, or it was rather difficult to get the data for it. So yeah, all of this is coming during this week for Celo, and next week with new subgraphs for the new chains, starting with Arbitrum and Avalanche. And yes, I think that's all from my side for the moment.
Fantastic. There's a few questions in here already in the chat, so I'll let you address them, Pedro. But for anyone else, clearly, as you can see, that's a lot of information for all of you to digest. So if you have any questions, please do ask away either in the chat or via voice. I could see some additional questions in the chat as well. So Pedro, if you want to have a look at that.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through.
Awesome.
Mark, what will be the first mission when the subgraph will be available? I'm not sure I'm understanding the question. Yeah, while Mark is responding, related to L2 phase, how to claim the vouchers and rebates manually. Where can we read about claiming the vouchers and rebates? Oh, good question. Let's see if I have someone from the smart contracts team. I don't see anyone in the call. We'll get back to you, Viliha. Hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. We'll get back to you with an answer. When will we be available to follow the QoS stats from the beginning of the mission? Live stats. Yeah, so Mark, as I said, the subgraphs and the dashboards, these new ones should be coming early next week. So starting with Arbitrum, you should be able to follow the metrics in real time. And Juan is actually building those, and I see him typing, so maybe he can share more about this. And we'll also be syncing
regarding
from
the data. Are
yeah.
you asking, Mark?
I'm not sure if Mark is asking since the beginning of the program or this new mission for these upcoming chains, but the answer is yes to both. We'll be syncing from scratch, so you should be able to get the old data too.
Yeah, but the old data will be the same as the one that's currently available, because there hasn't been like segmented data posted on chain for those time periods. So we will still have old data, but it will be the same thing that's currently on the QoS subgraph. But the new data will become segmented into each of the gateways. So we will have like a different, we will be basically able to follow each of the different gateways, so each of the different environments separately. So it will be easier to kind of like separate and sort all of the different environments, if that's what you were asking. But the old data won't be able to do so because it has been posted with the old version. So it's whatever's on chain at that time.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I just want to maybe explain a bit more what I'm asking for. I think it's very important for the transparency and for a good to have some I guess some confidence into the scoring of different phases. We need to have some live QoS metrics. I think that's the goal of the subgraph, right? So basically, I'm asking. So when will be what will be the first mission that on day one will have these live metrics available, so we'll be able to follow the performance of an indexers and making sure that our indexers are performing as expected and put the changes as required. So if I understand correctly, the subgraph will be available sometime next week. So that's going to be too late for Arbitrum missions, right? So it's going to be what for Avalanche then? Maybe for Avalanche we'll have the subgraph. Is that the plan, the current timeline?
I don't know the exact schedules for the missions. That's something probably Pedro can answer. But from my side, like the data is not exactly live. It's like 5-minute intervals, so it's sort of live, but it's not gonna be live because it has to be posted on chain. And of course, we won't be able to post data every second on chain. But aside from that, it should be, I think it should be close to what you want to have for dashboards and stuff. So it should be pretty decent, and it's also data that's also gonna be used for scoring. So yeah.
Is that I was saying that early next week, by Monday, we should have the subgraph synced, meaning that mixed participants would be able to follow up with their metrics in real time starting Monday. But the Arbitrum mission is starting Friday, lasting for 7 days. So even though it may not be ready on day one, it will be on day 3 out of 7.
Also, it's important to clarify that if the Arbitrum data is going to be posted since before Friday, we might be able to have it available, but it's not going to be available by Friday on the subgraph, just because it does take a while to sync due to all the IPFS files that it has to manage. But if, and this, I'm not entirely sure, Pedro, maybe Craig will be able to answer that for us, but if the data is being posted right now with the new format, it could be available on the subgraph whenever it's finished syncing. Otherwise, it might not be. So I don't want to make any promises. But yeah, the subgraph will take a little bit longer to sync. So it's probably going to be ready by Monday. But it could also have data from Arbitrum day 1, day 2, day 3, if it's posted on chain at that time. I don't know if it makes any sense. Hopefully it does.
Yeah, thanks, Juan. Yeah, no, I mean, to me it does. Yeah. And I just wanted to point out that we are prioritizing this. You know, we have different core devs building this stuff, and we're trying to get the data ready. Monday is like the most conservative, let's say, or optimistic, I should say, timeline we can give. But to Juan's point, it may end up being synced earlier. So yeah, we'll see. We'll keep you all posted. Mark, let us know if that was clear.
Yes, thank you.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, just to be clear, like we know that this is super important again, and we want to have all of this data from day one. So hopefully this last update will get us there. All right. Yeah, I'm trying to follow with other questions. 𝗨𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 RPC provided in documentation is dead. Not sure if anyone noticed. Do we have more options where to find working version? We had another endpoint yesterday, but it's dead today. Daniel, can you share more context about that? Oh, I think I know what you mean. Are you talking about the L2 mission and the 𝗨𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 RPC you have to set on indexer agent? Is that, can you tell us which RPC endpoint you've used? Yeah, okay, thanks for confirming. In our Notion page, I believe I shared the link to a page where you can check multiple RPCs that you could use. If not, I'll share it again and make sure that the Notion page is updated. Maybe the case that the RPC that you're using is indeed dead. Not sure. Okay. Yeah, let me share the link here. So.
Sweet. While Petro's grabbing the link, any additional questions? Feel free to either type in chat or unmute the mic.
Sure if you were talking, my connection went down for a little bit. MIPS wise, I can now just go over the chat and answer questions if folks have, and if you want to move over, if you want to continue with the agenda.
Yeah, we're actually pretty light on agenda today, so I'm happy to continue with MIPS if people have additional questions. Cool. Well, yeah, I guess as I mentioned earlier in today's call, we're pretty light on agenda. So if anyone has any topics or anything that they'd like to bring up, this is the opportunity to do so, and we can discuss in today's call. So either unmute your mic or type in the chat. Any topic goes.
Nobody wants to talk about Firehose?
That would be a good follow-up, actually, considering the discussion last week. So, yeah, Matthew, if you wanna take us into a Firehose discussion, please do.
Well, I guess I was looking to see if there was any questions in the chat. So there was a few questions in the Discord since last week about just setting up next steps for integration with GraphNode and stuff. I think we're kind of there's a few people maybe waiting for the next release of GraphNode 0.30, which will reduce the workload on the RPC nodes. But yeah, there's I'm open for questions.
Seems like you've got a question in the chat from Alexei.
Sorry, let me bring that chat up here. When Firehose EVM executor? Okay, well, that's a good question. So if you attended the the Graph Core dev chat on last Thursday, 𝗨𝘀𝗲𝗂𝗪 from Streaming Fast mentioned the EVM executor. So I think that is testing is underway. I'm not sure if there's a timeline for that release, but yeah, I don't have any updates on that. Maybe Pedro does, but when? I guess soon. Soon, TM.
Yeah, can you? Yeah. Yeah, I was just about to say that today the Streaming Fast team and Edge they started experimenting with the EVM executor for Ethereum mainnet. They're trying to get essentially checking the responses they get for ETH calls when compared to other RPC nodes, let's say, and external providers. And so they are comparing these in, I believe the test bed has around 500 something, sorry, 5,000 something subgraphs on the hosted service. So that's a pretty big sample, meaning that we're monitoring how reliable and deterministic that is to have more confidence in the current EVM executor for Ethereum mainnet. That's, I believe, all we can share so far.
I will share though, for the indexers who are interested in the EVM executor, one thing you can get started on is understanding, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this right, but 𝗨𝘀𝗲, TIKV. It's a key value store that you can run on your bare metal hardware. I mean, EVM executor will work against the Google BigQuery, but probably most indexers not on Google BigQuery. So look into 𝗨𝘀𝗲. Version 6 or 6.1 should work. And so you might want to start understanding that tech stack and maybe get that set up. So when the EVM executor comes around, then you've got a database to throw the data into. Feel free to ask me any questions on that tech stack. We've been running it for other workloads for the last couple of years, so we have some experience, so you can ask questions. That's the one.
Nice, thanks for sharing.
And I think I did hear that the Ethereum database is around 600 gigabytes, but I might have heard wrong. So, but anyway, it's not. And if you're doing 𝗨𝘀𝗲 where it replicates the data, then in my mind that would mean ×3, so 1 point, something terabytes of data. Anyway, just from a sizing perspective for Ethereum mainnet. 𝗨𝘀𝘲 runs across multiple nodes, so you set it up in a cluster. I guess you could run it on one, but the whole point is it's a clustered key value store. Any other questions?
I see somebody typing in the chat. Seems like you've been tagged in a question.
Yeah. Sure. So giving archive the AX with the long deprecation window. Well, there was two, I guess, recent posts, because there was talk about Go Ethereum and archive capability, and then I guess there was the other post from this morning about, maybe removing some chains from Aragon support if those foundations don't want to support those chains for development. So, I guess in either one of those cases, having the EVM executor as an alternative would be great, because then, whatever happens on either of those cases, we would not be impacted as indexers. So as indexers, we've got like three options, right? We've got Go Ethereum client with archive, which can be very big on the big chains. We've got Aragon, which may or may not be reliable, depending on your chain. And then we've got the EVM executor, which is under test. Does that help? Thumbs up. Okay, good.
Amazing. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute your mic, everyone, or type in the chat.
Question about documentation for Firehose. How to set up a local node, how about different configurations like remote S3 and so on. So I'm not sure if the S3 is documented fully, but there's 3 environment variables that you need to set in order for the S3 to work. And I don't have them handy while I'm just talking here, but I will post them in the Indexer Firehose channel after this. So basically, there's a configuration that needs to be set for how Firehose works, and then you need to provide your API key and your secret for the S3 bucket. And then when you set up any of the URL endpoints that are in the Firehose configuration file, you just put s3:// bucket name and an optional directory path, and away you go. So we can definitely cover that in the Firehose Indexer Firehose channel, and we can go through that. I haven't tested it with AWS S3, but as I mentioned last week, we use Ceph S3, and it does work with that. And that you just have to get the URL syntax correct, and then it works with those 3 environment variables. So I'll just take a note here, and I will post a bit later this in an hour or so the information in the Indexer Firehose channel. Yeah, the documentation is a bit light when it comes to how to set up Firehose operations, but feel free to ask questions here or in the Discord.
Cool. Thank you so much, Matthew. We'll continue opening up for some more questions, maybe some final ones. And if there aren't any other additional questions, then unless there are any other topics that people would like to cover in today's call, we can wrap early. But of course, yes, if there are any questions, please do fire away, either in chat or in the by unmuting your mic. So final call for questions. I see Vince typing, so I'll pause myself. Holy smokes! He just copy and pasted a bunch of stuff. I'm assuming it's in relation to the conversation that he's having in the chat. Okay, cool. Well, in that case, I'll take this opportunity to wrap today's call. Obviously, everyone who's having a chat in the chat box, feel free to continue. Like even if we end the recording and the call, you guys can still chat and discuss the conversation further. But for everyone on the call, it's been a pleasure to have you all today at Index Office Hours. Thank you all for attending, and we look forward to seeing you all again same time next week.